So, David.
So, Michelle.
What are we talking about?
Look, I know I didn't tell you anything.
No, you told me nothing.
Absolutely kept you in the dark.
Yes.
Because I've been spending a lot of time getting some hands-on work on my spine.
I know.
Now, the one thing that's been going on a lot is we've been talking submarines and
Lots of sub-chat.
global politics and all this sort of stuff. And you know what we haven't talked about?
What?
Spies.
What?
We haven't actually spoken about spies.
Not for a while.
What's going on in the spy world?
Yes.
And one of the things that sort of popped into my head, and I suddenly went, you know, when I was working as a spy, we used to get these really cool tools, these gadgets. Not James Bond level gadgets.
I love the James Bond levels gadgets.
We didn't quite get that. My favourite is I remember sitting there and somebody had a clipping from a magazine for a camera that was part of a car aerial. Remember the good old days when you had a car aerial that could lift itself up and put itself...
Yep.
Well, it had a fibre optic that went up to the top so you could pull up and then and your camera would go up and you could look around with it would go down. It's a little periscope in your car. We don't do that sort of stuff anymore. So
there's no Get Smart level of intelligence?
Well, the problem with all the
talking into your shoe.
Well, there was a shoe bug. An American intelligence officer was in Russia, needed his shoe repaired. When he got it back, they took the heel off and found a microphone in it.
Amazing.
Right. So there is that sort of level of technology. But the thing is, a lot of the technology we use now, everyone uses.
Yes. Mobile phones.
Mobile phones. And the other thing that was really interesting is a lot of the tech that we used back in the day was stuff we found in detective magazines and in the back on the back page of comic books. It's like, hang on, that X-ray spec could be really good. Oh, and sea monkeys, we can get them to infiltrate someone's house.
Okay.
So today we're talking about what has happened with technology for spies in the last 20 to 30 years.
Yes, because we have briefly touched on it from the earlier perspective, from when you were in the corporation.
Yes, back in the 1860s.
I know.
We were still using lemon as our secret ink. So yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay. You're listening to I Spy, the malware of Australian intelligence.
I'm just going to sit here behind your taskbar and slowly siphon away all your intelligence.
I bet no.
First you're going to find me. I'm behind the taskbar.
Wait.
Now I'm behind the clock. And now I'm back behind the taskbar.
Okay, give up.
Switch off the computer.
Okay.
I'm dying.
Hello and welcome to I Spied. My name's Michelle Stevenson. I'm here with David Callan, and today we're going to talk about tech, spy tech, all of the tech, but also because we have spoken before about your time when you were in the corporation.
I love the way you call it the corporation.
We'll call it the corporation.
The corp.
Well, your time in the corp, we've spoken about, kind of some of the things that you've come across in terms of from a technology spy perspective.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see kind of where it's moved and how the spy world kind of deals with what's going on right now. We've got drones, we've got mobile phones, which are basically big portable listening devices.
Essentially, you're walking around with a computer that could have got like
that
Apollo
tracks you.
Well, that's the really big thing.
Yes.
You would be amazed at the number of things that can track you. Your car tracks you.
Everything tracks you.
Right. If you've got a GPS in your car is now tracking you. Now, the interesting thing, your phone, you took a look at your Apple phone?
Yes.
Your Apple Watch?
Yes. My wearable tech.
Your wearable tech? I have an electronic watch, but it's got no technical connection whatsoever. Now, the whole thing
I hate to break it to you, no one's really following you.
It's a Tissot touch watch, everybody. The same one the same kind of watch that Angelina Jolie wore in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Anyway, enough of that.
Okay, great.
Fundamentally, the biggest change, the biggest shift in spy tech is the web, right? The internet has utterly changed the way we play the game. And like at the moment, your phone's not the only thing in your house that's betraying you.
It's everything else.
Your game console is betraying you.
My game?
Your gaming console.
I don't have one.
Your PS5 or your Xbox.
I don't have one, but of course we know that. But Alexa.
Yeah. What is the other one? The Google.
Chrome.
Chrome. There's another one, the Apple one. What's it just called? A pod? I don't know. Right. There's everything in your house is watching you. Everything else is taking care of you. Your internet fridge, it's watching you and it's judging you, you fat person. Right.
No, it's judging you, you fat person.
I'm a fat person. I am. It's terrible. So the whole thing is at the moment where the intelligence world is really struggling because back in the good old days, it used to be dead drops and brush contacts and all the fun stuff you used to do. Now, for those of you who need to know, a dead drop is where you find a little niche in a wall somewhere where you can sit down on a bench and reach under and slide the little matchbox that's got the secret information or whatever you need. You just tuck it in there, and then a couple of hours later or a day later, your contact walks past and sits down on the same bench and pulls it out. The problem is if you've got your phone with you, we know where you're sitting. We know where you've stopped, right? And we can follow you. There was an interesting case where they sort of said, essentially, one of the things every good spy needs is cover.
Right.
We need our covered identity. We need our legend, it's called. The problem is they're getting harder and harder to create, right? As a spy, it's too easy. Like a great example they used in an article I was reading was that take a young Canadian intelligence officer in Moscow. Right, we're going to say that she's a graduate student that's in Moscow studying, but she's an intelligence officer. Hang on, first things first, we've got to create a new identity for her. Now, that identity can be blown apart just with a good old Facebook search.
Yeah.
Or just a reverse Google image search. As soon as this person is identified, right, as soon as you've got to have a completely clean social media profile, which is virtually impossible now, right? Interestingly enough, I met one of my family, has a new boyfriend. I met him. One of the most fascinating things about him is he's got zero social media presence.
Yeah.
Which immediately made everyone go, hang on a minute.
I know it's so very weird when people have zero social media presence. But like speaking of social media, one of the big things which a lot of people are talking about is TikTok. And I mean, this from a spy perspective, this is basically China spying on you.
Well, it's China that is basically doing a lot of data gathering. And let's be perfectly honest, pretty much every social media platform does it. The only problem or the difference between, say, TikTok and Facebook or Twitter is they're owned by a government body.
Well, also Facebook do it for reasons of financial reasons, whereas TikTok does it for a little bit more nefarious reasons.
I think you make money on TikTok though, don't you? Don't TikTokers make money? I'm sure TikTokers make money. Don't they?
Yeah, they do, but it's more that the government owns it, so they're not looking at it as a tool that is for gaining them more money. They're looking at
they're not looking at it as a profit tool. They're looking at it as a data tool. But that's absolutely fine. Now, have you been watching the Congress?
Yes, I have.
There was a great one where they basically went, how can we have these people that are so media unsavvy trying to investigate this? Because I remember my favourite was somebody turning around to Mark Zuckerberg and going, will you guarantee that there will be a opt-in, like anybody who uses Facebook must opt in to share their data? To which he went, that is what Facebook is.
Yes.
It's an opt-in to share your data. That's all it is. So the thing with TikTok, yes, it's a government-owned entity, but a lot of this is where it gets blurry, and this is the real problem we've got now, particularly in the intelligence world, particularly in the West, is everything's blurring.
Yeah.
Right? Interestingly enough, because of the identity problem, the fact that people can be identified so readily, you really can't put a spy out there more than once. If you put someone into an actual, into an operation in a foreign country, once that person's burnt, they're burnt. You can't use them again. And the interesting case was an intelligence officer from Russia called Litvinov. Litvinov was the deputy ambassador to Australia, I think, at one point. So the Soviet ambassador or deputy ambassador to Australia, and he was identified in the Reader's Digest as potentially a KGB officer.
Right.
Now,
that's great.
Yeah. So everyone knew he was a spy while sitting on the crapper reading the Reader's Digest. To those of you out there, the Reader's Digest is a book.
I know. I remember the days when you would go into a bathroom and you'd find a stack of Reader's Digest.
Because
why was it the toilet magazine?
Because
I don't
it's
understand.
bite-sized. Because it's only 2 or 3 pages.
I understand, but no, it's not that it's bite-sized. It's that it was smaller. It was like book-sized.
It was book-sized, but the thing is the articles were bite-sized.
Yeah.
They were always abridged versions of stories.
Except when your uncle would come out and he's consumed the whole thing.
He's read the entire thing and no one can go back into that bathroom for several days.
Light a match.
Yes. Light a match and also then throw it into that can of petrol because no one's going in that room again. Thanks, Uncle Dave. Right, so the whole thing is back in the day you could be potentially exposed.
Yeah.
But if the intelligence services that exposed you weren't sharing with other intelligence services, you could, in all likelihood, be moved on. Now it's not that way.
Well, also you've got like CCTV, you've got like all forms of
facial recognition technology,
all kinds of things.
That's the big thing because you can change your profile, you can change your name. hair colour, the whole ball of wax. But when you've got a computer system that is looking at the way you walk.
Yes.
Right? Your gait, the way you walk is an identifiable and idiosyncratic trait of you. It's like a fingerprint, all right? Now, your gait does vary. Like at the moment, I've got a few back problems. So as my sister-in-law said to me over the weekend, why are you mincing? To which I went, shut up, I'm in pain, right? So the whole thing is your gait can change. And in fact, one of the things that's come out of Israel is they're now looking at technology that will examine the way you walk and see if you're walking suspiciously.
I mean, but they use that at airports.
Exactly, right? So it's like, oh, that guy's walking a bit suspiciously, his eyes are down, he's shuffling, and he's mincing. Arrest him.
Yeah.
Right? So the whole thing is we've got all of this technology that is like hands off. It's not as hands-on as it used to be. And the fact is, we don't look at cameras anymore.
No.
Right? We see a camera and it's just a camera, but what we don't realise is that camera could be a thermal camera that's checking my temperature to say that guy's got a raised temperature, maybe he's carrying a disease, or that guy's mincing, maybe he's carrying a bomb.
Yes.
And also, he may say his name is Fred Nurk, but his name is actually David Callan because we've got his facial recognition profile right here.
Now, looking back, also getting back to kind of the TikTok stuff, because I was listening to a podcast recently who had a journalist who basically exposed TikTok for their data sharing program over in the US. And that's kind of where this whole TikTok issue has, people are viewing it as a propaganda machine from that kind of propaganda point of view because they can control the narrative on TikTok.
Oh, totally.
And B, they're also looking at it as a data harvesting tool. Like they have access to American, Australian, all kinds of data and all kinds of information. Because a lot of people don't realize when they say yes to the terms and conditions on TikTok, you're pretty much giving away everything. Yeah. Like it's insane what they have access to.
You don't own anything anymore.
So this journalist was saying that once she lifted the lid on something because she had a whistleblower come to her, what had happened, and she didn't even realize because she had a TikTok account, TikTok were harvesting her data. They were using her location data through her TikTok app.
Yeah.
And they were trying to equal it up to everyone that worked for them.
Correct.
To see if they'd ever come into contact to kind of work out who the whistleblower was.
That's exactly the point they make with telephones, with mobile phones.
But this is through the TikTok app.
But that's through...
They have access to your location at all times.
But pretty much any app now, right?
I know, but I'm just saying, people don't understand.
Exactly, right. So the interesting thing was, as someone said, there was an intelligence officer in Moscow and they went onto the metro and shut their phone down. Now, in the metro, there is internet access the same way you catch a train here in Sydney or in Melbourne or wherever. If you go through a tunnel, you'll still have internet connection.
Not our tunnels.
Oh, yeah.
No. You go through a tunnel in Sydney and if you're on the phone, you lose contact with them.
I'm talking about train tunnels. Trains actually have modems.
Yes, what I'm talking about. Trains.
No. They have their little wireless modems. They've got repeater stations in them, the actual train. The whole thing is this person got on the train and switched their phone off for 4 hours. Right. So the big thing was, okay, where are they? Well, hello, there's cameras everywhere. We're going to find her. Yeah. Right. But the whole point is just switching your phone off for 4 hours or leaving it at home is automatically suspect behaviour. Right. So they start back reading everything that goes on. It's this kind of death spiral of data where it's like if we get the data, we can prove that you're doing something wrong. And if we don't get the data, that kind of proves that you're doing something wrong.
Yes.
So intelligence is a world of suspicion. It has to operate as a world of suspicion as opposed to, innocent till proven guilty. Intelligence really is a case of you're guilty until we can't find anything on you. And even then, we'll find something on you and use that. So the interesting thing about that is we go from our devices down to our apps.
Yes.
Right. So an interesting point that's been made is people suspect that gaming consoles are being used to mine Bitcoin. You load an app onto your you load a game, you load an app onto your gaming console, and essentially that app sits in the background and starts mining Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So it's using your data and it's using your electricity,
a lot of electricity
to make money. Right now, the thing that's interesting about that is a lot of people have said to mine on a console would take you forever.
It would.
But if you've got a system or a network of consoles that don't know they're doing that mining and they're still mining while you're not using it,
Yes.
You can have, 1,000 machines and suddenly you're making quite a lot of money, right? So these are the sort of things that are going on. There's all of these apps that are now coming onto computers that operate in the background. You don't even know you've got it.
100%. People can access even your camera, your microphone in your laptop.
Right. So, and here's the thing. I mean, the classic one is you put a piece of paper over your camera so no one can watch you. But, ultimately that doesn't shut down the microphone. And that comes down to that idea of malware.
Yep.
So malware is now the really big problem. And interestingly enough, there is one piece of malware on the planet that every government wants. A lot of governments have paid to get it.
Yep.
It's created by a company in Israel called NSO. Israel are literally the leaders in all of this stuff. It's called Pegasus.
Yes, we've spoken about Pegasus before.
So the whole Pegasus thing it's a spear, but the whole thing was it used to be to load Pegasus onto a phone, you had to click on the link. Now you don't even have to do that.
Yeah.
It just goes straight in there. As soon as it lands on your phone, it infects your phone, and then what it does is it clones your phone.
Right.
There was a lovely scene in Spooks I always thought was great where
Spooks is great, except all the good characters always die.
Yeah, well, that's their job, right? Because that's how it happens in the intelligence world. Everyone dies.
Yeah, everyone.
No one dies.
No one dies. But like Spooks, you just be like, I like that person. Oh, damn, they blew up.
Damn. Oh, dang. Yeah. No one died when I was at Asia. They're all dying now because they're all getting old. Now,
you guys are dying a slow death of old age.
Old age and sawbacks. Now, the whole thing is there was a great scene in Spooks where they had to clone a guy's phone. Right, a target's phone. He was asleep, right? And they snuck into his room and they took the phone and they, with one cord, plugged it into another phone. And it was like you watch the bar zip across the screen, unplugs the phone, we've got it, let's go. No. At that point in time, in history, all right, because I went to a security conference about 2 weeks after that episode aired and I was talking to a guy, so I did my I Spied show at their dinner, and then the next morning I went into their sales floor where all of these people are selling technology. Almost all of it was app and computer based. But I sort of said to this guy, did you see that episode of Spooks where they cloned the phone? And he just looked at me and went, do you want to know how we really do it? And I went, yeah. He went, because I sell the technology. I went, cool, show me. It was this massive briefcase with this computer in it, but most of the briefcase were cables.
Right.
Because everybody's phone cable was different at the time, right? There wasn't just USB-C or Lightning. It was you name it. So you had to find the right cable to plug into the phone, and then you'd plug it into the computer, and the computer would suck everything off the phone. But it would take about an hour.
Yeah.
Right? Not 5 minutes.
No, we don't have the Lightning, not the Lightning quick.
Right. Now, that's a really important thing that we got now. We don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
We don't need to touch the phone. We can literally do it by sending you an email and infecting your phone.
And talking about countries and spying, now the US have Section 702, which they need to look at redressing because it's lapsing in December. So Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. So basically this allows US intelligence agencies to carry out warrantless spying on foreigners' email, phone and other online communications.
Yeah.
Now with the US citizens, they need a warrant, of course, for that. Now any information they get, they can turn over to the United Kingdom and Australia, like you asked. But what is interesting about the US, because they say that, it's quite common for governments to have access to kind of this data. Washington has a bit of an advantage because they have jurisdiction over Google, Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft.
Yes.
Which means they basically have access to the world. So while the Americans are running the Riot Act on TikTok, they essentially have access to far superior information.
Yes, right. That's the thing, right? Don't forget governments. And this is a really interesting point that people are saying is Western governments versus non-Western governments. China and Russia. China, Russia, North Korea. When they stop playing with
India.
Yes and no, because now we're in the Quad with them. AUKUS, Quad, Five Eyes.
Oh, sidebar. What about New Zealand wanting to do the second tier AUKUS?
Oh, really? They want to do a non-nuclear.
Yes, they do.
Sweet, I didn't hear about this.
Oh my God, I have to send it to you. We'll touch on it.
Please do. We'll talk about that. Yeah. Now, the whole thing is the big problem that the West have, particularly their intelligence services, they're bound by laws.
Yes.
Right. We are bound by laws. The way ASIO operates, it has to.
Whereas China does not have those things.
Well, actually, China have basically got a law that says you have to cooperate with the intelligence services, where in Australia you can turn around and go, well, I don't feel like cooperating with you. Convince me, right?
Yep.
Now, it's also become a real problem in the West in that there is so much more scrutiny.
Yep.
Thanks to freedom of information. Thanks to freedom of
Oh, my God. Fuck.
Thanks to FOI requests.
Freedom of information.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you very much for saving me.
Yep.
Right. Because of freedom of information.
Oh, my God. Why can you not say freedom of information?
Because my back hurts.
Freedom of information. Okay. Freedom of information.
Freedom of information.
Okay, there we go.
Right. FOI and archives requests.
Yes.
Right. The problem is in Australia at the moment they move glacially, right?
Yep.
It takes a while and generally you get this glacial thing and no. And also there is redaction where you will literally get a page that's nothing but Sharpie.
Yeah, it's just Sharpie.
I used to do that job. The Sharpie job was a fun job to do.
I love that they trusted you with our security by giving you a Sharpie.
David, here's a Sharpie. Yeah, cover that. Okay, not a problem.
Take care of Australia.
Yeah. They'll never know that we never knew. Right? That's the way I always approached it. Now, the thing is, because of all those sort of things, we are under a lot more scrutiny.
Yeah.
It is harder to operate in the intelligence environment, whereas you look at the more despotic regimes around the world, it's a lot easier for them. And also, because of the way they operate, like particularly Russia at the moment's gone crazy. They're everywhere.
Oh, at the moment they've gone crazy?
No, they go like at the moment Europe is literally crawling. Every second person you meet in Europe is likely a Russian operative.
Right.
It is really, really, really crazy. And the funny thing about that is it's because the Russians have basically turned around and gone, your laws aren't as strong. Your laws are weak. We can get away with stuff.
So when it comes to spy technology, what I'm hearing is it is predominantly online. It's your wearable tech, it's your mobile phone, it's maybe even your AirPods, it's
cargo
anything.
cranes.
It's Meta. It's
cargo
Google.
cranes.
Cargo cranes.
Cargo cranes. You know those big cranes?
I know what a cargo crane is.
Sit next to ships and take the boxes
I know what that is.
off.
I was more expressing like, what do you mean by cargo cranes? I know what a fucking cargo crane is.
I know. I'm getting to it. I just did it to. I'm building tension. I'm making the audience go,
oh my God.
Ooh, what's he going to say next?
Yeah. I'm real tense.
Cargo cranes. They are now regarded as a serious security threat by the Americans.
Okay, why?
Because the Americans realise that the Chinese make really cheap cargo chains. Yeah. The Chinese make really cheap cargo cranes.
Oh my God, you're having a great day.
Having a terrible day with my mouth. Yeah. Right. So they make really cheap cranes. And one of the things they also do is they got really good software for tracking all the stuff that those cranes lift up and put down. Right. So bada bing, bada boom. Wow. And it all...
Like, what do you mean? Because how would it know what's in there, though?
Right. Well, okay, you get a manifest. So the guy in the crane goes, I got to pick up container number 645.
Yes.
He picks up container 645 and there will be a notice saying, by the way, be very careful because it's full of computers. Be very careful, it's full of baby powder. Be very careful, it's full of military technology.
How would that get, like, I don't understand what the spy aspect is here.
So then that gets logged into the computer. It's been put on that ship. We know where that box is.
Right.
So if it's full of something we really want to look at, we know where to go to break into it and have a look.
Okay.
The other thing that the Chinese are making a lot of at the moment are shipping containers. So, right, so your shipping containers are made by what is regarded at the moment as the big enemy, and also the cranes that are loading them. Pretty much every crane in America now was made in China and is being run on software that is developed in China, and all of that data is going back to the company in China.
Yes, and there's a lot of conversation in the tech world about pulling away from China making kind of everything, like whether it's stuff for iPhones, whether it's, kettles, toasters,
F-35s.
And, well, anything
chips
basically.
coming out of out of China were going into F-35s.
But even like your basic electrical appliances could, for all intents and purposes, turn into listening devices.
Your toaster is listening to you.
I mean, all mine's hearing is I'm gluten-free, but
all my toaster hears is Vegemite again. Okay. Right. This is the thing. The interconnectivity of the world has become the problem.
It's the new frontier.
Well, we actually thought it was going to make spying easier. I mean, I remember when mobile phones first came out and everyone went,
oh my God, I don't have to put a bug in a phone?
Everyone was terrified. Like the intelligence community went, hang on, how do we bug this thing?
Yeah.
We've got to have, whereas we go in and either bug a landline at the interchange. Right, so we
with
literally
your little rotary dial phone, the press buttons.
Yeah, the press buttons, or whatever phone is going into the wall in your house, we can bug from the interchange. And in desperation, we can get into your house and put a bug in it anyway. The problem being with a mobile phone, oh my God, how do we get your mobile phone? Until we realised, hang on.
We can just listen in.
We just listen in via a computer.
Yeah.
Or if we really need to, we get the frequency of that phone and we listen to it with a radio.
Right.
Now, here's another thing. Your router is spying on you.
I don't have a router.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
How do you run exclusively off mobile, do you?
Yes.
Really? Wow. That's crazy talk. I am a boomer. Right, so.
No. I have NBN.
You've got an NBN.
At home.
And you've got wireless.
Yes.
That's a router.
No, a router is one of those little things that you had to plug in.
How is your NBN
Oh, I don't know.
connected?
Maybe it has a router.
If it's plugged into the wall, it's a router. Have you got the two boxes? Have you got the NBN box and then the other box?
No, I don't know.
Right, you don't care. So you're not paying attention.
I literally, all I use is I only use my phone.
Yeah.
And I usually hotspot off my phone.
Yeah, see,
because I got so much data.
I have NBN and I've got a router and
That's because you never leave the fucking house.
Oh, well, I've got a blanket for it. Why should I?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, well, of course you have NBN. The rest of us carry it with us.
How many screens do I have in my blanket fort? You've seen it, at least 5, right?
You're like a 17-year-old who's ready to like commit some kind of like crazy war.
I'm an absolute crazy hacker. No, I'm terrible.
No,
right, now the whole thing is, right, so these guys at, I think it was either MIT or Princeton, they've worked out how they can actually turn your router into a bug. And it's, when you think about it, it's so stupidly simple, right? Because what does a router do? What does a wireless system do? It sends out radio waves, right? It sends out a radio wave to the device and the radio, so there's this exchange of radio waves. Now, if you put somebody walking through or talking in that field of radio waves, what it does is it oscillates the wave. It changes the wave. We can read that. So we can tell where you are in the house by your router.
Crazy.
And what you're saying.
Oh, my God.
Right. So this is the thing. And it comes down to the good old, this is a classic piece of tech that just showed up just before I left, was the laser beam bug. Right. So you'd fire a laser beam through a window, and if it was this room, I'd fire it through that window and into the television behind you. So as I'm talking, that piece of glass vibrates, that shortens the length of the
and we've
laser
spoken
beam.
about this, I believe, before.
So that technology is now pretty much moribund. We don't need it because I can switch on the microphone in your phone remotely. I can switch on the camera in your iPad remotely. I can use the wireless signal coming off a computer to bug you. It's like we are literally bugged at the moment.
And I know that there's a lot of concern around, like the Googles and the Alexas that you have in your house, basically because they store information and your commands and your voice, and they're basically one big listening device.
They're just one big fat bug, and you're paying for the privilege to use it. Bottom line, though, is it always comes down to the most important factor in any intelligence operation. Why do I care about you?
No one cares about me. Actually, maybe they
everyone cares about you. They give you dresses to wear.
Yeah.
And really nice ones. And I give you a T-shirt.
I like your Cobra T-shirt. Thank you. I didn't know what the car was, but I now have a Bogan T-shirt.
You got a Bogan T-shirt. I want to see.
It's sleeveless. I love it.
Yeah, mate, muscle shirt. Right. So the thing is, are you important enough to be watched?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Now, if you are, well, you need to take steps to protect yourself.
I'm unplugging everything.
Unplug everything. Get a burner phone. And by the way, burner phones don't help because, again, voice recognition, all we have to do is basically have a system like Echelon. AI, I forgot to talk about this. AI is the other big thing.
Yeah.
Because they've worked out that 75% of what an intelligence analyst does can be taken care of by an AI in a quantifiably shorter amount of time. A huge amount. You save lots of time. The one thing you can't get an AI to do is think like a human being.
Yes.
Right. We can certainly play around with it, and I'd like to thank you, whoever it was. I can't remember your name, but I'll remember it and put it on Twitter for sending out those AI-generated pictures of us. I've never looked so good.
Of us?
Remember the AI pictures that were sent of us?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yours were really, really nice.
I mean,
not as nice as you in real life, but mine were a vast improvement.
It helps if you have something good to start with.
Good point. I like the fact that in all of mine I had a pipe and a candle. It's like, how boomer do I have to be? Right, so this is the thing.
Yeah.
AI is now, that's going to make it harder for spies to work.
Well, and like even what we're seeing right now with the whole scamming thing, like, you know how everyone's getting like multiple phone calls on their mobile phone.
Yep.
So you get a phone call, you don't know who it is, you'll answer, and then you won't hear anything, and then you'll hang up.
Yeah.
So what's happening on the other end? They're actually recording your voice.
Yeah.
And so then they're going to computer generate and add to it, and then they've got your voice.
Yeah.
And then they can use it now to like call up your bank.
Yeah.
And use your voice. So if you're getting phone calls and you don't know who they are, pick up the phone, but don't answer. Wait for them to speak first.
Yes. Now, I've had a friend of mine who got one of those, we're Amazon and you've just spent
all the time, yeah. And the linked ones and they're
the
everywhere.
brilliant one was he went, you've just spent $764. He went, yeah, that's cool. And they went, no, we've got to get on your bank. No, it's cool, mate. I spent $764. And they went, but there's a $674 one. He went, oh, hang on. Oh, yeah, that's cool. That was me. And literally spent the entire time going, yeah, I spent that. Yeah, I spent that, because all they want is your bank details.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So to bottom line it, really
Bottom
simply,
line it.
the intelligence world is getting a lot harder to
navigate.
To navigate. It's also getting a lot harder to sustain a career in.
Yeah.
Right. Most intelligence officers now basically get the hell out of there. It used to be you joined the spy agency and you worked there till you died. Or now it's you join the spy agency, they put you out on 3 operations, you do a stint as an analyst, and then basically that's just another paragraph on your CV as you move into the private sector.
Forget burner phone, it's burner agent.
Exactly. That is actually the best way to look at it. We are burning through our intelligence assets, our human assets, simply because we can't keep them.
They're one and done.
And you know what? Generally, they're going out into the business world because corporate intelligence is now becoming such a rich area that they are actually making a hell of a lot more money. So you apprenticeship for the government.
Makes absolute sense.
Then you go out and you work for someone like one of our friends.
Okay. Who's your friend?
You've met him. If you don't know who he is, I'm not telling you.
Okay, maybe I need to hit him up for a job.